Hey, welcome back and thank you for watching. It's Graham Cooper here again from Cooper and Cooper Investment Property Solutions. Just want to cover a few other points, of course, because in this property investment scenario, there are many aspects to it, and we are here to guide you through the process. So, just coming back to financing, there's some misinformation in the industry, of course, and of course there's a lot of lack of knowledge for prospective investors, and really through life, that is one of the big issues is just not knowing what to do, not knowing what options are open to you in relation to whatever you're planning to do in life, and so knowledge is certainly a big help in that respect. What I want to talk about here is deposits. So it is generally through the media discussed that you must have a certain X amount of dollars as a deposit for a property, and that's just the end of the story, full stop. Typically, in the media they talk about a 20% deposit. That the banks or the lenders are sort of fixed on a maximum of 80% lend. Well, all those things, do change, and the options are variable. And of course, it's important that you have an understanding of the options that are open to you. So let's first of all talk about, I guess the most frugal way to purchase a property, something that the more experienced investors use very often, in fact in most cases, they use what is called a deposit bond. Now, a deposit bond is like a guarantee of a deposit, and while no actual money changes hands, it is like a promissory note. The old-fashioned check was a promissory note. But a deposit bond is actually superior to that in terms of the fact that actually, there is actually no money changing hands. So how does that work? Well, okay, a deposit bond is, as I said, is a guarantee to the builder, the developer, the seller of the property that you're interested in purchasing. It's a guarantee to them that you actually, in fact, have finance in place, and that obviously you can afford it because the deposit bond company has done a brief analysis of your financial position via our feasibility and so forth. So a deposit bond is a really great way to preserve your capital. In other words, to preserve your funds that you may currently have. And however, it is important to know that a deposit bond can only be used when you have some other form of security behind it. And typically that means that you already are purchasing or own a property, and that property can be used as a form of security for your deposit bond issue. So the deposit bond company would be, as I said, aware of your assets and liabilities via our process of feasibility, and also through your finance broker. And so the deposit bond company would agree to issue a bond to you. Now, it is important to understand that, however, a deposit bond is a promissory note, and a deposit bond will cost you money. A deposit bond's value or cost is based on number one, the value of the property you're purchasing, and number two, the amount of time that it will take for that property to be ready, completed, fully constructed, and ready to be settled by the builder or developer so that you can conclude the purchase. Now, typically, most developers and builders will talk about a construction time of 26 weeks. Now, that's an ideal time, and that's an industry standard, generally speaking. However, it should be noted, as life is what it is, that of course things will intervene in that process of construction and time. And typically that is, things such as bad weather. During the construction process, particularly in the early stages of the preparation of the slab, the drainage, the laying of the slab and the construction of the frame, which are early stages of construction, the weather, the state of the weather is very, very important to the time frame of that construction. So therefore, the deposit bond company looks at all of the variables in relation to that construction, and basically they set in or cost in a margin of error within the construction period. So let's say conservatively that the whole process from your investment property from giving the deposit, and then the builder goes off to the council, gets approval on the construction, gets a building approval on the construction of the property, and the whole process starts. And there are government departments, council departments involved, and of course all of that takes time. So let's say conservatively it takes 12 months for your property to be constructed, from the time you place your deposit to the laying of the slab, to the fixing of the frame, to the gyprocking, to the roof, and so forth, and the final fit out. Well, the deposit bond company says, let's put a margin of error on top of that 12 months, and let's say that it takes 18 months. This gives the builder a leeway in terms of that margin. However, the builder would typically then be in default if he does not complete the property within the 12 months as declared on the contract. However, the deposit bond company says, okay, we're going to put a margin in there of a maximum of 18 months for the property to be completed, and that is referred to as the sunset clause. The sunset clause is the final date that the deposit bond company says the property must be completed, which is inclusive of all of the bad weather and all other delay mechanisms that may come into play. So your deposit bond cost is then based on the sunset clause and obviously the cost or the value of the property. Typically these days a deposit bond cost could vary anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 in a typical construction 18-month process. You need to be aware that while you're paying that $3,000 or $5,000 as your deposit bond fee, it does not become part of your deposit. It does not go towards the purchase cost of your property in terms of your loan. Okay? That's very important. This is an extra cost over and above the mortgage that you will be signing up to when you purchase the property and take out the loan. However, you don't need a 5% deposit. You don't need a 10% deposit. You don't need a 20% deposit. In those circumstances, when you have other forms of equity to back up your deposit bond, you only need the cost of the bond. What a great way to purchase a property. I can recall many years ago, one of my associates and clients, where he purchased a property in the city, actually in the city of Sydney, right in the centre there, World Square. And he purchased a one-bedroom property, and at the time I was quite in awe of the fact that he was prepared to pay, wait for it, $297,000 for a one-bedroom apartment on the 17th floor of World Tower. That seemed like a fortune at the time. We're talking around about 1999. However, he went ahead with the purchase. He had to get a bond with a sunset clause of 7 years. 7 years. quite remarkable. However, he unnervingly continued, committed to the purchase. And of course, you can think about that now. So now we're talking 20 years later. Might I say that by the time or prior to the property being completed, his valuation came in at $497,000. So over a period of about the first 3 to 4 years, his property literally doubled in value before it was completed. Okay, now that may in many cases be an exception, but it is not unrealistic. It does happen. It's about timing, it's about the economic cycle, it's all about the right place at the right time. It's all about, from an investor's point of view, courage. Like most things in life that are worth doing, it takes some courage, it takes some confidence, and it takes some degree of certainty by knowing that you've done your spreadsheet, which is our first step, as you may recall, and you already know the likely outcome of your financial situation. That's a very, very easy way to be able to come to a decision-making process, is to know with a great degree of certainty that all the figures are going to work, nothing is going to get in your way, there are no unknowns that we can reasonably discern, and that you can be confident in proceeding based on those figures and numbers that we do for you in stage 1, step 1 of property investment. Okay, so I don't want to overload you with information, so we'll call that discussion today on deposit bonds. We'll bring that to a close. So as I say, and I'll just summarize, a deposit bond is a great way to preserve your capital. It's a great way to not have to pay a 5, 10 or 20% deposit. It does require other forms of security or equity, preferably through an existing property that you may be purchasing or owning. But it is a great way to preserve your capital, and certainly a great way to jump onto an opportunity when the situation arises, because timing is everything. Have a great day. Thank you for watching. Nice to talk to you. See you again.